Hello class, and welcome to week six of CLS 100. This week we'll be looking at two very important and related aspects of your academic success. Your ability to effectively read, and your ability to effectively take notes. So in other words, we'll spend the first part of this mini lecture looking at the reading aspect or chapter 8. Which is essentially the aspect that focuses on how well you can take in written material in your classes and understand it and use it and apply it to your learning. And then in chapter 9 we'll look at the recording aspect, which essentially is how well you can take in the verbal information that you get from your professor during class, and do the same thing with that. So very closely related, but slightly different. And you'll notice a couple themes as we go through this. One of those themes that I want to alert you to up front is the importance of intentionality with these things, whether it's reading or note taking, or really anything in your classes. You have to make intentional choices and decisions to do well and to apply yourself to improving. So with that in mind, let's take a look at reading. First of all, one of the things that you probably never really considered when it comes to reading is your attitude toward reading, and that's really the first element that we'll look at. Attitude makes a huge difference in how much you get out of your reading. If your attitude is wrong on the front side, it's going to be difficult for you to benefit from the things you're reading. And so there are two different styles of reading that are discussed in chapter 8. Active reading and passive reading. Active readers approach assignments with a positive open mind and say I'm going to learn from this. Whereas passive readers have a negative attitude about reading and just consider everything to be worthless. So if you look at that and you think about it, you can learn from virtually anything that you read, no matter what the subject is. And And if you go into it with the idea that hey, I'm going to learn something from this. You're probably more likely to get something out of it than if you go into a reading assignment with the attitude that it's busy work. It's not of value. You're not going to get anything out of it. So if you look at pages 192 and 193 of your textbook, there's a short test to help you assess your reading style. And when you take that test, if you do fall more on the passive side, think about that in terms of your next steps. What are some ways that you can change your attitude toward reading, and is that something that could potentially affect how much you get out of the things you read for your classes. So in addition to reading style, which is the active versus passive dimension, the second thing that we'll look at is reading rate. Reading rate is essentially how fast you read. And you might ask why is that something that would matter in terms of my academic success. And the simple answer to that is that knowing your reading rate can help you better budget your time when you're doing assignments. And also if you're more effective and if you can read more quickly, you can be more effective at getting through material in a timely fashion. And it can also improve your comprehension. And so if you look at pages 194 and 195 of your book, there is a little test that helps you assess your reading speed. And just to kind of think about this a little bit. The average reading speed is around 250 words per minute. And the average textbook page contains around 450 words. So if you do the math, we might calculate that it would take around 3 minutes or so to read a typical textbook page. Or maybe even a little less than that. But the thing that doesn't factor in is it doesn't factor in time for taking notes, reflecting on things, or looking up things that you may not understand, or rereading it. So if you're trying to budget your time for assignments, you may need to budget as much as 9 to 10 minutes per page for textbook reading. if we know that that's true, and we know how much time reading can take, improving your speed is something that can be important. But the one caution that I want to give you on the front side is the most important thing with reading is comprehension. So in a perfect world, you would want to be able to read both quickly and efficiently, and for comprehension so accurately, but if you have to sacrifice something, you should sacrifice speed because comprehension is the most important thing. But if you're trying to improve both areas, there are a couple simple things that you can do. First of all, increase your concentration. So reduce your distractions. Set up a schedule that includes breaks. Take notes as you read. In other words, be truly focused in an intentional way on the reading itself. Commit to it. Do it. Remove distractions. Engage yourself with the material. And the second thing is reducing your fixations. Now, if you look at the textbook, they explain this in more detail. But fixations are essentially where you focus your attention when you're reading. It is possible to sit and fixate on every single word. The average reader sees around two and a half words per eye movement. So the piece of advice here is if you can widen your view and actually focus on a larger number of words at a time, you can drastically increase your reading rate. So rather than fixating on every word, widen your view. See two and a half, 3, 4 words at a time. Chunk that information. You'll still be able to understand it, but you'll be able to move through it more quickly. Finally, one more note on comprehension. One really simple thing you can do to help your comprehension is simply identify main points in each paragraph. It's not difficult, but it is something that requires concentration and analysis. So what you want to do is look at each paragraph and just ask yourself what is the main idea. In some cases in college textbooks you'll find that Paragraphs may not have a specific topic sentence. So you may need to read additional material around it to sort of see the big picture. But the core question is can you identify what the main idea of this passage of reading is, and if you can't, you should probably go back and reread it. But if you constantly check yourself and ask yourself those questions as you're reading, you'll find at the end that you have a much better understanding of what you read. And the final thing that we'll look at in the read chapter is a simple plan for active reading. And that is the SQ3R plan. This should look familiar to you because this is the same plan that's used in the assignments at the end of each of your chapters. And what we'll do is we'll break apart each of these components and talk about them individually. So the S in SQ3R stands for scan. So the first piece of advice that they give you in your text is before you jump right in and start reading, go through the entire chapter and scan it. Look at the titles. Look at the headings, the subheadings. Look at the things that are bolded. Look at the different graphics that might be in the chapter. The pictures. Read the summary if there is one. Look at the first and last sentence of each paragraph. In other words, before you start reading in depth, get that kind of 30,000 foot flyover view of the material. Scan it. It'll give you a much better orientation of sort of how the pieces fit together. So that when you start reading, you kind of know the context. The Q stands for question. And essentially you can think of this in terms of the who, what, when, where, why, kind of how questions. And one thing that you can do as a technique that fits with some of these other pieces that we'll talk about is take all the major headings in a chapter and turn them into questions. So write them down, and at the end of the chapter, look at each of those questions and see if you can answer them. If you can't, you should probably reread. Finally, we have the three R's, which are read, recite, and review. So reading is what we've been talking about so far. And so you can see a couple little tips and techniques here. Read entire paragraphs before highlighting, and do things like highlighting, taking notes, looking up unfamiliar words, and identifying main points. Most of the